Welcome to the Possibility Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton, aka Possibilityman. We're committed to bringing you guests who strive to better people's lives and serve as a force for good in the world. Our guest today is Shoela Currey. She's a natural medicine practitioner. She has a diverse educational background and has studied in the United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia. Not only is she a health practitioner, she's also a university lecturer in nutritional therapy in the United Kingdom. Shula is a sought after speaker at health conferences and at virtual meetings all across the world. She applies the principles of several modalities in her work, including functional medicine, homeopathy, nutritional therapy. Shoela Currey, welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much, Stephen. What a lovely introduction. And I'm quite privileged to feel part of the Possibility Action Network because it ties so much into my belief in what people can do with their own health in so many ways, just in so many ways.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to our conversation and to let people know how we got connected in the first place. But with this programming note, to everyone who's listening to this podcast, follow, like, and share this podcast wherever you find it. Your support matters and is appreciated. So, Shula, I'm not sure if you recall how we got connected. Do you recall how I met you?
I believe
I
it was through LinkedIn.
You.
It was through something probably I posted or someone posted about me. Because that's what I'm finding out. It's LinkedIn is one of those wonderful resources that you don't realize how vast the connection is. And one of the things I really enjoy about being on LinkedIn is you connect with people outside of your domain. And I think that's the best way to get messages across, because everyone in your domain knows what you do and may have the similar viewpoint, but people outside of the domain or the industry or whatever word you want to use are the ones that I want to share the knowledge with and get the message across of what you can do.
Yeah, but you're exactly right. That's how I found you, because someone made a post about you. And I saw all of these things about functional medicine, lifestyle medicine, herbal medicine. I said, oh, I got to talk to her. And I reached out to you, and I was so happy that you responded. But look, I want to, because as I said in my introduction of you, that you have a just diverse educational background. And there's so many domains or more, in healthcare and medicine today. And I want you to help us understand them. So I'm going to throw some things out and just have you kind of tell us what these things involve. The first one is naturopathic medicine. What is that about?
Hey, so the premise of naturopathic medicine, I think the international agreement is it is not, I don't like the word, it's an alternative. It's not an alternative form of medicine. It is more of a complementary form of medicine, which means it could be used with adjunct conventional medicine, meaning orthodox medicine. Also, there's some key premises with naturopathic medicine, which is the physician or the doctor or the practitioner is an educator. You're there to educate the person about their health condition. You're there to help teach them on ways to manage their health condition. And one of the other fundamental principles it always comes to mind is physician do no harm. So we try to use interventions that with the least side effects. So therefore, it is often natural medicine. However, I will say natural medicine does have its drawbacks. So sometimes there are times that people do need to use conventional medicine. But one of the other key things about naturopathic practice is a very cornerstone is prevention, is about educating people, whether it's with lifestyle factors or dietary. And I'll be honest, I don't like the word dietary because people hear the word die. And I always have said in my lectures, diet means it kills your relationship with food because you become so obsessed about this is good or bad. Where I think it's more about making people aware of the totality of what they're eating, and also the reasons sometimes you're eating certain things. If you're tired or stressed or you're sleep deprived, it's biologically biological responses, you will want carbohydrates. That's how we are programmed. If you are, for some people, they might not want food, but it's more about the reason I have always come back to my naturopathic principles. It's about making people aware of what their options are, and that can also improve their conventional medicine treatment. So if someone's being managed for hypertension or someone's having surgery, so that brings it's a principle. In parts of the world, they do practice differently. However, the principle, the foundation is still the same. The foundation is still the same.
Yeah, I really like the way you responded to that question. We will take a deeper dive in some of the things that you've said already, but just on that point about naturopathic medicine and, let's say, the traditional allopathic medicine, what you said was that, it's not necessarily an alternative, but a complementary form of treating patients. I like that a great deal. So here's another one, and I must admit, I wasn't really aware of this until I really studied you, and that is herbal medicine. Now, of course, I knew about herbs, but herbal medicine, what is that?
So that's another one that has lots of words associated with it. And what is fascinating about whether you call it herbal medicine or herbal medicine is, I believe by the World Health Organization, so it's an independent body, not me, still 70%, 60 to 70% of the world still uses herbal medicine as their main form of healthcare. So it means using plant-based materials. It means using spices. It could be roots. It could be anything from what we may, in our Western world, see echinacea in a bottle, but it could be growing your own echinacea and knowing that you use the roots to help certain conditions. It might be opening your kitchen cupboard and discovering that you have cinnamon, which is very useful when you've got an upset stomach. I mean, herbal medicine isn't just about what's in capsules or what's in tablets. It also can include aromatherapy. So there's been, I think, some amazing studies coming out in the last 3 or 4 years about lavender, which many parts of the world grows. Whether you smell it, whether you intake it, I wouldn't say just go out and chew some from the garden, probably doesn't taste that nice, but it has a great effect for helping reduce anxiety. And that is a great example to me of something that we call botanical medicine, herbal medicine, but we don't really know about it because many people see lavender growing everywhere. Another one is rose. Rose is a beautiful herb to use for grief and for the nervous system. And I mean, I am a gardener. I love the plants. To me, not having green life around me is alien. Is very alien. I'm was notoriously known for, if you can't find Shoela, she'll be in the garden doing something. Because I think plants can teach us so much, so much.
My mother was probably a practitioner of and of our idiot, like would probably determine how we pronounce it, herbal medicine. Real quick, when I was a kid growing up, in the 50s, early 60s, she would send us into the woods and get roots from a tree. And she said she was making, get this, sassafras tea. And that it was good for us. That's herbal medicine, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just want to add something to that is many people don't realize that a lot of our pharmaceutical medicine is actually based on herbal medicine. And aspirin, salicylic acid, where does it come from? A birch tree. That's
Isn't that something? And then, of course, you add some synthetic stuff to it, and it can be harmful. But that's another story, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But here's another one. Shoela, that I like the way it sounds, and I like the way you put it. And I'm using quotes there. Complex homeopathy.
Yeah,
Wow.
complex home.
What is
Yeah.
what is that?
Well, my introduction to homeopathy is quite interesting. As part of my training, I had to do homeopathy in Australia at the time.
Mm.
And I'll be honest, I have a very strong science background. So this kind of thing, talking about diluting things and different potencies, and you look at the different spheres of people, I'm just like, yeah, wada. However, what I found profound is I think I did a slight an injury with something. I don't quite recall, but I remember the lecturer giving me a homeopathic remedy. I was ready to, hadn't done my enough herbs yet, so I couldn't go down to the dispensary. She just gave me this, I can't even call it a pill, a minute thing, and said, hold it under your tongue and take it 3 times a day for the next 3 days. Yeah, it sprained my ankle quite severely. And she looked at, I can remember Cornelia looking at me. She goes, I know you think I'm nuts anyway. Just do it. If nothing, you won't get harmed. 2 days later, I had to go to the doctor to get it, officially looked at. It's like there's barely any swelling. You've got a great range of motion. What did you use? And I said, well, it happened at college. My lecturer gave me this stuff and arnica and blah, blah, blah. He goes, oh, that's wonderful. It's complex homeopathy. And I remember, I'll never forget, because I went back to this doctor my whole time studying there. And he says, I still remember the look on your face was like, you get this and you are not challenging me about using this. So that opened my eyes to this whole concept where what the principle of homeopathy is dilution and less is more. And a way to think about it is that everything has a different, if you want to use the technical term, frequency. So I explain to my clients, like if you're driving on a road in the old days with your radio, and you get to certain parts and the radio goes and you have to kind of fine tune it again to get the station. And then other parts you lose the station. Well, homeopathy, certain remedies are fine tuned or aligned with certain indications. So arnica for bruising, Bellus perennis for soft tissue injury, calendula for cuts and wounds. Now, the difference with classical homeopathy is traditionally you use one remedy and just look at one situation. Complex is what they use a lot in Europe. There's a gentleman called Redwick who really decided to, I don't know for what reason, but I think he found the understanding of what we call when you join certain things together, you get a greater power than if you use things singly, which is called synergism. So there's complex remedies that can help with trauma. So there's a very common one, Traumeel, which is fantastic, which my friends laugh at me because I think everybody has probably a little vial or a little tube of it, because even though it's for bruises externally, you can use it for as just an immediate first aid treatment. In Switzerland, I'm lucky I have a friend that lives in Switzerland. It's used complementary to surgery. I mean, when she had a major surgery, she told me about what she received. Yes, complex just means that there's more than one. And it's much broader. It's not, some people say it's not fine-tuned, but I do think it covers a lot more for most people.
Okay. Yeah, so, from what we've looked at, naturopathic medicine, herbal medicine, complex homeopathy, and there are many more, right, domains. So Shoela, it would seem to me that in the 21st century, we know more now than ever about health and how to be healthy and well. So here's a question for you, because I'm puzzled by this. Given all that we know, how would you appraise the status of human health today?
Honestly, I would praise the status of human health in a very challenging time. I feel that one of the challenges that people have lost is they don't know how to take responsibility for their own health and where to start with it. So I'm no means am I saying if you have a major injury or you have a chronic health condition that you just ignore conventional medicine and x-rays and certain interventions. However, there is so much evidence and understanding that the body is a complex interplay of its environment, its physical environment, mental environment, social environment, besides even what you put in your mouth. And what I think is really sad is that we've kind of the paradigm of framework of conventional medicine has always been one problem, one solution. So I feel that we've kind of gone into this rabbit hole that you have a person who could have 6 or 7 or maybe 25 symptoms, and in essence is taking 25 different medications to deal with those 25 symptoms because they're seeing 6 or 7 different independent consultants who are forgetting that this person is one individual who has the diagnosis is not the person. The diagnosis is part of the person. And I feel that what is also being lost is that there is so much focus on, I would say, fear medicine. I know people don't like to hear that word, but just in case, just in case, just in case. And I do feel that there's a viewpoint called the psychoneuroimmunology framework, which believes that how you think affects your nervous system and affects your immune system. So if you're more stressed about, I could possibly get X, Y, and Z, there's evidence to suggest you will get X, Y, and Z, as opposed to let's educate people of the simple things we can do. I mean, there's a whole generation of us, and I'm not saying this is a good thing, but there's a whole generation of us that drank water from a hose. Did we get phthalate poisoning? Did we get paraben poisoning? No. There's a whole generation of us that probably ate way too much Slurpees and produced, things, our tongues turned different colors, things came out different colors. However, having the ability to find resources that educates and help you understand what's going on with your body rather than doing the fear mongering. And I think one of the biggest ones I hear it in, sadly, is women who are pregnant. My neighbor, her daughter is expecting, and it's quite sad to hear that the focus is on, because she has a health condition, is all the bad things that could go wrong. So this young lady is focusing on all the bad things that can go wrong instead of her journey of pregnancy, and that she's going, she's transitioned into motherhood. Yes, the shift is too much about too heavy on the negative, as opposed to seeing it as there's a lot that we can do. There's a lot of knowledge that we do have, and we can incorporate into our lives. And it doesn't have to be complex, and it doesn't have to be impossible or expensive.
So do you think that people, just ordinary people, not health and medical practitioners like yourself, know whether they are healthy or not? Do you think we have more knowledge?
No, I honestly don't. I honestly don't, because what people wait for, I can speak, having lived in 3 very different countries and with 3 very different healthcare systems, very different healthcare systems. I mean, yes, all of them have, in the UK, we have the NHS, where you hear people of a certain generation will just wait and wait and wait and wait. And you feel like saying, well, actually, you shouldn't be waiting that long. Then you've got in Canada where it's splitting at the moment. And in Australia also it's splitting at the moment. But most people assess their health as if they don't have a disease label. They don't assess health in the sense that I can wake up in the morning and I have energy to do things, or I can, if I want to, to me, when I first moved to the UK, and I still remember this, we called her the unique one on my cousin. She was 87 and she used to ride her bicycle probably 364 days of the year. Now, Christmas Day was the only
Wow.
day you didn't see her on her bike, right? With her little basket, and she picked up her fruit and veg, and she had an allotment, and there was a spark in her eye, and you can have a conversation with her about anything. To me, that's healthy. It doesn't necessarily mean that all your parameters are in the right section, but you have that vitality. And that's why I do think what's the sad thing at the moment is I don't see as much vitality in certain generations as I once did.
Mhm.
I see more fear. I see more fear.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I don't know about the UK, but here in the United States, if you turn on your television set for 60 minutes, pharmaceuticals are going to throw at least 10 drugs at you, tell you to ask your doctor about them. What's going on here? Does it happen in the UK, first of all?
No, we have different rules, but reason I'm laughing is when I when I travel to Canada, I can remember having been out, being away from Canada for a length of time, sitting watching TV going, wow, this is really interesting. And how they try to give you all the benefits at the beginning in such a lovely, calm voice, but then tell you all the side effects and really quickly, please consult your
That's right.
doctor. Please consult your doctor.
Yeah,
We don't
yeah.
have that to the prevalence. It's becoming a bit more, it's becoming that there is an infiltration. I think people would say they're noticing different ads on TV, and also because television is becoming more global. I mean, anybody says that television is localized, it's not. So yes, the
Yeah.
pharmaceutical influence on how they promote is very different here. There's much stronger guidelines. We have what's nice guidelines that, which some people sometimes make sense and sometimes makes you go, really? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got you. Right. So I want to take a deeper dive now into health challenges. And I'm glad you told us that you've lived, in 3 countries, various different parts of the world. Australia, just to review, you're in the UK, and you've also lived in Canada and been educated in those places. In looking at world populations once again, what are some of the, let's say, 2 or 3 health challenges, specific health challenges that people face?
I think one of the scariest health challenges to me, and I mean scary in the sense that many people, the top 3, one is diabetes type 2, the other one is hypertension. And I'm starting to, I don't know if I would say it's a health challenge in not able to develop resilience for their stress management. So I don't know if you would call it a health challenge, but to me, it's a health challenge, because if you're not able to understand and have positive coping mechanisms to deal with stress, it cascades into very negative coping mechanisms, which for example, in the UK, alcoholism and addiction has skyrocketed post-pandemic, which I think is not just the UK. I think it's a global thing. But diabetes, so many people are walking around that do not realize they have type 2 diabetes. And there is such a strong correlation between type 2 diabetes and dementia. Type 2 diabetes and a whole host of other things. And to me, type 2 diabetes is not necessarily, people associate you have to be quite large, unwell. That's a great example of health. People perceive that if you're really thin, you're really healthy, but it could be something that you've been experiencing a lot of stress for a long period of time, and your sleep is dysfunctional. And because your sleep is dysfunctional, that's led you down that path. So it's the lack of those are the kind of things where some lifestyle guidance can make such a profound difference, whether it's even in school, even in schools.
Okay. So I want to look at what people can do about it in a moment, but I want you to continue to help us understand what we face. And, your 3 were type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and I believe stress was your third.
Yes. Yes.
Would you also put, let's add a fourth, would you also put obesity up there, or just being
I would
overweight?
put obesity up there, and especially the reason I probably would put obesity up there is because the lack, well, to me, the explosion of obesity, in particular in children, where obesity
Yeah.
used to be seen as more of, I wouldn't say an old person's conditions, but someone who's grown up, and maybe occasionally you might see a young child that is morbidly obese.
Right.
And I'm not talking about a little belly fat, or they're chubby, that baby fat. When I went to Australia, back to Australia a couple of years ago, well, it's 5 years actually, I was at my mouth, I had to keep saying, keep your mouth shut, Shoela, just keep your mouth shut, Shoela, because I was stunned at a country when I first went to over 20 years ago. Yes, you saw people were large, but people were large in the sense they were robust and healthy, and there was vigor there. Not seeing 6 and 7 year olds or children under the age of, to me, a child is under the age of 14, not even under the age of 18, who can't even sit on a bicycle because they're so heavy.
Yeah. And I lived in the United States and South Carolina in particular.
Okay.
And at this point, Shoela, I'm old enough to know that I can almost see healthy and unhealthy on the body of the person I'm looking at, including children. It's like, wait a minute, puffy cheeks and and this, So what about you? Can you see health, or? And of course, now
yes, I can. I can see health, because I truly believe the skin can be an indication of how healthy somebody is. The health of the hair can be an indication of how healthy someone is.
Don't talk about the hair now.
But it doesn't necessarily also have to be, what's going on the scalp situation. Teeth is another one. Oral health care has also changed. Our world has, it's kind of shifted, that some parts of the world perceive that if you inject it and make it fill up, it's going to look great, and then you're healthy, not realizing that there's a consequence of that. But your skin, I think skin can reflect so much, and so can eyes. Someone's eyes. I just love it when you see older people, what I used to call, you knew the mischievous ones, because they have this little glint in their eyes. But to me, that's vitality. The vitality is still there, as opposed to be, numbed out or shut down. I think that's a global thing. You see a lot in Europe. I mean, it's also known in parts of Europe, when the Italian mama comes around, and she may look quiet, but then she speaks, and you can hear that the power of her voice, that she's there. She may not look like she's there, but she's there.
Okay. Just want to roll back a moment. You're right. Because I want to move on to another subject, but I don't have to go back to something that you said about type 2 diabetes. And I just know that there's some people who are going to say, my mama had it, my older brother have it, and I got it, it's genetics. Or someone else is going to say, well, it wasn't my fault, it was medical induced. What am I trying to ask you here? Is it like predeterminative, determinative? That is, if my mama had it, my daddy had it, my brother had it, I want to get it?
No. And it's the same thing as heart conditions. And I think that is the great example when we were talking about how we have all this knowledge, but we may not be using this knowledge. It means you are at a greater risk factor. Because you're a risk factor does not mean you have to get something. And also, if you have a risk factor and you're aware of if you're aware of that risk factor, there might be things that you mitigate at an earlier stage in your life to manage that risk factor. So is the fact that, your mom, your aunt, your dad, all these members of the family, is it because of their biological makeup, or is it because of family habits that, when we're upset, we eat, and we don't just eat a little bit, we eat a lot, or we don't have the understanding, and I mean this in the kindest way, so people listening to this do not take an offense, that having what is a carbohydrate, in the science world, my students get really annoyed at me when I say to them, you're talking to people, you're not talking to scientists. They don't want, what's a carbohydrate? Tell them a food. So if you're eating lots of rice and you do not know that rice puts up your blood sugar, and you're not having it with enough protein, and what a source of protein is, for example, chicken, beef, fish, etc., and you're not having vegetables, no disrespect, potatoes are not vegetables. Potatoes are part of a starch. And so many people think, well, the potatoes, it comes out of the ground, it's a vegetable. No, I mean leafy vegetables. And you're not having fats. If you don't have the basic understanding of what good dietary, what's not even good, what's regular dietary intake should be, and exercise. I know in my family, I'll put my hand up completely, I'm always been known as the weird one. Anytime I travel, I always take my trainers and my yoga mat. And that means I'll go walk. It's part of me. Members of my family is like, well, why do you do that? It's like, well, that's how I chill out. I don't want to sit in front of the TV. That doesn't, So it's also what you have learned. What are the habits you've learned in the family? Have you inherited those habits? Because those are modifiable. Those are very modifiable.
Right. And we're going to get more into that in a moment. But I like it. I've heard once, and I want you to comment on this. Someone said, genetics may load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. Is that about what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. So the viewpoint of thinking, the question of so many gentlemen, especially because it was higher incidence of men dying from smoking, from various lung cancers. Yes, smoking was part of the loading the gun, and maybe there was a predisposition, but it does not mean the son has to get it. It does not mean that the grandson has to get it. And that also comes back to what we spoke about earlier about taking personal responsibility. And I am, my father, when I was younger, I used to think he was very different. Now I'm realizing, oh gosh, I'm so much like him. But he used to always say, we have choices. We have choices. And sometimes people don't like to make a choice, because that means that I've made a choice, and it may, not saying it's the right choice or the wrong choice, but it means you've made a choice. Yeah.
Right, for sure. I also appreciate your work, Shoela, because you've spent a lot of time educating us about women's health. Can you talk to us about the kinds of things that you see and how you work with women globally today?
The kind of things I've seen. Wow. I've worked with women with preconception care problems, so having problems conceiving. I helped design a preconception care product, which was for couples, because unfortunately, at those times, I look back now, this seems normal to hear, and couples say that, both of them go to get themselves checked out. At that time, it was not the done thing. It was always something with the women until they went to a specialist. I've also worked with a lot of women with fibroids and endometriosis. And I think the one that always still touches me, and I think I'm really glad to hear there's more awareness about it, is young girls with period pain. I do feel that there's still so much misinformation out there that it's normal that you're going to have period pain. You might have a bit of discomfort, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be, I can remember one lady, that was how she used up her holiday. was that's, because her workplace just did not acknowledge that something was wrong. She later got diagnosed with endometriosis, so after, I think, 14 or 15 years. But I've worked with a whole host of various gynecological problems, and the impact on quality of life, from the simplest things of somebody wanting to go to a yoga class, or somebody wanting to actually, one lady came to me because her son didn't want to be around her because he didn't like how mummy's what do you call it, the ghost mood came out. Yes, what he called it, and he was only 4.
Wow.
And it's that's sad. To me, that's sad. And she always got told, well, you just got to deal with it.
Yeah. Wow. And we're going to get into that ghost mood in a moment if we have time. But look, is there such a thing as optimal health? And along with that, is it possible for a person, not a group, but a person, to achieve optimal health for himself in this case?
I would say it is possible to achieve optimal health. But I do think one of the key things is it has to be individualized. What I may perceive as healthy, you may not perceive as healthy. And it's not about, eating chocolate cake or having chips or French fries. It's bigger than that. I do think it's this whole thing about the totality of the person. Optimal health means, do you have healthy relationships? What's your sleep like? Do you take holidays? I mean, I remember when I worked in Canada, being a student, you don't necessarily have the most lucrative jobs when you're a student. And I can remember, if you wanted to take holiday, that was like, you had to work ridiculous amounts of hours there to get one day. And if you were sick, something was wrong with you. And I think that's the other thing, is that we've really lost this understanding that we're human. We're not on our artificial intelligence. We are going to get sick. And being sick is okay.
Yeah.
It's about also being, how quickly can you get well? And it's not about quickly to get well to rush back into work. It's about, do you get over that cold? Do you get over that flu? Do you give yourself that, my 4-letter word that clients used to hate is rest, R-E-S-T, because it's like, I can't rest. I can't. What? Why?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so easy in our modern world to get caught up into this cycle of, I got to be doing, I got to be doing, I got to be doing, I got to be engaged, I got to be doing, I got to be doing. And that is something I truly believe we've lost from our ancestors. Sunday, you sit down, you don't watch a Netflix binge till 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, somebody and I were laughing about what are the sounds that you forget about. And I said, I can remember you would fall asleep watching the movie and wake up and hearing the TV crackling, and there was nothing else to do. Optimal health to me is also takes into account your sleep. And that's a huge thing that's so many people just disregard for their health until it's a problem, until it's a major problem.
Yeah, that seems to be such a challenging one, because a person would say, okay, I recognize that sometimes I don't sleep well. But then the next question, and I'm conscious of this, is how do I sleep better? And I don't always find the right answer. So what can you tell us about that?
I think one of the key things with sleep is that our brain, I mean, this is the one part of the body we still don't know so much about, is our brain has a quite phenomenal way to process information that we may not be processing, that we think we've dealt with. And I do think sometimes sleep can be a sign that, hey, you need to take a step back and just give yourself time to process. So go for a walk, do some stretches, listen to some nice chilled out music, maybe go for a dance, have some fun. I do think sleep is a reflection of what we haven't, is not so much dealt with, but is what we might be distracting ourselves to kid ourselves that everything's okay.
You know, you just
It's,
gave
yeah,
you just answered my question. May I share with you what I got?
yeah, yeah.
What you told me, and I'm going to be conscious of this. You said, okay, if you have difficulty sleeping, there could be a program running in the background of your mind, and check it out and see what you can do with that. That's what I heard you say. So
Yeah, that's what exactly right.
yeah, okay. So look, I'm going to kind of move on now into how can I get into this one. I want to talk about what people can do, and I'm going to use one of your domains, nutritional therapy. Is that okay?
Okay,
But then
yeah.
okay, so now I want to kind of look at this and ask you to talk to us about how do we predict some of our health risks? I mean, can we actually do that?
I think you can now. I think there's a lot
Mm.
of, if you want to say, use technology to its advantage, there's a lot of ways you can see how you respond to blood sugar regulation. Uh, why, um, anybody that knows me is going to giggle at this, but yes, I do drum on about the importance of having regular blood sugar regulation. What does that mean? Most of us grew up in a time where you had breakfast, you had lunch, you had dinner. That was it. Maybe on the weekends or a social occasion, you had a bit of a splurge. But I can tell you in the UK now, I can get anything at any time, any place, whether it's a train station. I don't even have to leave my house. I could actually go on an app and get something delivered to me. The problem with this is that food availability, you lose the connection of, are you really hungry? Because we can eat when we're bored. And if we're eating because we're bored, we have a tendency to eat foods that may not be favorable for us. So a lot of the carbohydrates. And one of the key things is food manufacturing. Food manufacturing is a business. I did a stint in my, I did start a master's of dietetics and I left, and I'm glad I left. I was stunned of what the things you learn about how you can make food taste really nice, but actually have very low nutritional value. And you get people hooked onto certain tastes. So what I would say for most people is to really take a step back if they can, and also address their stress. So stress is one of these words that, you know, I am currently doing a number of talks on it, and I find that I always say the same, comes back to me, is we use this word stress as a global understanding, but how stress affects each one of us is quite different. And what I may see as stressful might be completely different to somebody else. One of the key things about stress, it changes your taste buds. So you will have more salt, you will have more sugar. So the question is, do you address the diet or do you address the stress? Well, you know, it's kind of the chicken or the egg situation. And for many people at this current, globally, as you said, you turn on the TV and or the radio, there is always something going on. So being able to just keep it simple, I say, eat a rainbow a day if you can. What does that mean? Eat vegetables and fruits of different colors, have some protein, which is something that had a parents. Sounds terrible. Have some beans, it doesn't have to be complicated. It really doesn't.
That's right. Gosh, there's so many things you've said there that just strikes me. You're the first person who I've ever heard say that, and I hope I'm not overextending it, that food availability is the problem. Here in the United States, people talk about food deserts and, food shortages, and some people can't. But then, you drive down the street, on every street corner, you got this fast food, that fast food, that fast food, fried chicken, grease burgers. It's like, wait a minute now. So, ooh, that's a problem.
It
Could
is a
be.
problem. It is a huge problem. I do also find what is scary about food availability. It's people are not realizing this is also we're driving food addiction. You got a problem, I order something, I push a button, I jump in the car. And also, well, I mean, I don't know, it's probably, yeah, the same in the States. I mean, in Canada,
Mm.
I laughed at how many drive-throughs now. Like you don't
Yeah.
even have to get out of the car to go into order.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Shula, I'm not sure if it happened in the UK or the other countries you've lived in, but here in the States, there was a time where they started with double size, like 2 decks of greasy meat. Then you could triple size it, and then you could supersize your drink and your fries. My gosh, what are we doing to ourselves?
Well, what we're doing to ourselves is we pulled out of a lot of schools and a lot of families the basics of how to cook things. My first client in the UK, uh, I didn't, he was a banker, very stressed out, very tired, had huge bags under his eyes. I think he was only mid-20s, but he did not look mid-20s at all. Um, and he even said it himself, how he said it's like, I know I look a lot older than my age and I need some help. And his problem with his skin, he had really bad eczema. So it was red, irritating, trying all these creams, things weren't working. And what was stressing him out is it was happening on the tops of his hands. And of course, being a banker, when you meet somebody, you shake hands. So of course, his hands were always being on show. And I took case history, made up a bottle of herbs for him, and we went through his diet, and I was fascinated. I'll admit, absolutely fascinated. Yeah. I can still remember his diet consisted of basically coffee and occasionally a burger. But what cracked me up the most is he had his local Chinese takeaway on dial-up that he would get to the train station, call them, and they would deliver it at his door. And then at the end of the week, he'd go and settle up. I'm like, okay, we need to talk to you about food. So I told him to make some porridge. And I said, you make it like rice. Yeah. So comes back, he's really happy because the skin is slightly improved. But he says, Shoela, this porridge thing I ain't getting. Like, okay, what do you mean? He says, well, I put it in the microwave and it comes out as dry as it went in.
Yeah.
And I'm microwave porridge. What? Not understanding for this chap, he never saw porridge being made. So I had to show him literally in the clinic going, you take approximately 1 cup of porridge, wet, dry to about 1.5 cups. You put it on the stove, or you can do it in the microwave. You got to put liquid in there. It's not going to taste very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a simple thing like that. Yes, needless to say, he came back. He was as happy as Larry because all these other health issues improved. Yeah. And he laughed at it. He goes, now I can understand, because I said, well, you put some yogurt in and put some berries in if you want to, or you can, you can change it up, make it interesting. Because he says I was mixing the berries and the yogurt, and I said, like, with dried oats, I can't think of anything more.
Yeah, I tell you,
unpalatable.
Shula, yeah. I mean, back in the day, person of my generation, we grew up on real food for the most part. We ate meat, not gonna lie, but we grew a lot of fresh vegetables that we grew ourselves, So the way forward for us, fruits and vegetables, is that helpful to help us achieve optimal health?
I think it needs to be more focused. I always say vegetables and fruit, because so many people focus too much on the fruit and not enough on the vegetables. And vegetables I think if more people ate vegetables, and I do feel that some of us do require protein from an animal source, so they cannot be vegetarian or vegan, but just increasing that diversity of vegetables, not having peas and carrots that are frozen, discovering there is more than one type of kale. And when you grow, and I think that's the beauty of growing your own stuff, is that you realize that a packet of kale seeds, for example, that can keep you for years. Kale, there's all different types of kale. There's all different types of broccoli. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just so many things for us to talk about in those areas. But I just want to throw out one more food thing. Then there's another subject that I hope that you have time for us to at least
Yeah.
introduce. And okay, but I've noticed that one of your writings, and I thought, but this is beautiful. You wrote about uh, healthy and satisfying snacks because in my mind, a snack could be a bag of chips, right? But then you're saying, hey, it's possible to get healthy instead. Tell us about the kinds of things that you had on your wheel when you showed us, what healthy snacking is.
Well, healthy snacking to me can be something as simple as olives. Um,
Mm.
and olives, like some people go, oh, but olives. You can get different flavored olives. You can even bake olives to make them more chewy. You can use almonds. You can soak them, and then uh, a friend that he's really great at this. He uses various spice combinations. So sometimes he'll put garlic on them and throw them in the oven, and roast them himself. And as he said, he saves a lot of money compared to, and there's not as much salt. Um, Cutting up some vegetables, cutting up a bit of cheese, cutting up, it is about having that. Maybe it's making some hummus. And I know some people say,
Mm.
well, this isn't my cultural food, but there's a lot of things in various cultures that you can eat that are healthier besides a bag of chips. And a bag of chips, in my opinion, is a lazy way to snack. And if
Uh-oh.
you went to many cultures, they would say, I'm sure we all have those family members that would say, well, just you could make something very easily. I mean, even homemade granola can be a fantastic snack, which is just
Yeah,
oats, various nuts and seeds. Maybe you put a bit of cinnamon in there.
yeah,
Maybe you even put chocolate chips in there if you want to. Yeah, it is comes back to, what do I do with the food I have?
yeah,
What
yeah.
do I know about the food I have? Yeah.
I like what you're saying because what you're telling us is that first we got the power, we got some power within our hand. But the second thing that I'm getting from you is that we also need people like you to educate us, to help up our competence on what to do. So I really appreciate that. Hey, before I let you go, I got to talk to you about emotional well-being because you've been on the internet talking about, mental health conditions are on the rise. So tell us about, what you see going on, what your part is to help us feel better.
I think my part is to help us feel better, is to help people understand that I do truly believe the politically correct term now is neurodiversity. We're all
Mm.
different. We're all different. Whether you're ADHD, whether you're autistic, whether you're on the spectrum, whatever way you want to say it. What I think the saddest thing to me is that I'm seeing is putting people in a box. So somebody said it beautifully. I'm a fish and you want me to climb a tree. How am I
Whoa.
supposed to climb a tree?
Mhm.
Right? So the viewpoint is that if you have depression, it has to be a serotonin issue. So we put you on SSRIs like Prozac, fluoxetine, where it might be something to do with acetylcholine. It might be something to do with GABA. I think a lot of issues have to do with GABA or other neurotransmitters that we are not, don't put me in a box. And the way that we used to deal with things like this is there was more social support, but also people used to go and travel, maybe go to a lake or go for a walk or sit and read a book and be left to rest and repair. And when they were ready to come, it's almost like we're trying to tell people there's a time frame in which you have a health condition and this is how you have to deal with it. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, too many people are falling through the cracks. And the other thing is people are believing that they can't develop their own resilience. And I that
Mhm.
really angers me because I live in a country, I live in a part of the world that's gone through a number of wars. I
Mhm.
meet people that are in their 90s that still drive, completely cognitive feeling with it, and to hear them talk about some of the things they've went through growing up or in, and they still are able to, and it's not that they've suppressed things, but it's the understanding that that's happened then, what I have so much to be grateful for. And I do
Wow.
feel that we've lost that really simple thing of I'm grateful. And it's not to inflate that there isn't bad stuff happening in the world, but I wake up today, I'm grateful. I've got food on my table, I'm grateful. I can have a laugh. I've got a job. I may not like it, but I've got people to laugh about it with. I'm grateful. I do think gratitude is something that the East has really held on to much more than we have in the West. And I can see where certain countries are just surpassing their understanding and acceptance of, we don't need to put somebody in a box with mental health. Why do we have to box everybody?
Yeah.
Well, that's my thing.
And and they're coming out with, and I'm not a pharmaceutical basher, but they're coming up with new drugs all the time about this drug that for something like mental health. Yeah. But there's one other thing I saw on your LinkedIn page, and I just wanted you to just touch on it, because you linked emotional well-being at any age to movement. And I really appreciated that, because there were some pictures of seniors, who are, I mean, tell us about it.
Yeah. I'll be honest, that one really touched me, because sadly my mom passed away earlier this year because of her dementia.
So I'm sorry for
and
your loss.
Alzheimer's. And I was so pleased in the last facility I got her into, they were so much about movement. They were so much about movement. And I had a wonderful rapport with the team, because they encouraged her to move, and I didn't object to it. What I found really surprising is how many people are just like, well, they're older, they're slower, they need to sit. Our brains are connected to our muscles. You don't see a dog or a cat. I mean, I think animals tell us so much. They wake up, they wake up and they stretch. They stretch, they have a little move, they have,
I love to see cats do that.
they have a little jiggle, it's like, okay, let's see what's going on. What do? We get up, we pick up our phone, we get up, movements in the brain are, if you don't use it, you lose it. And that, I know AI is great, but I do find the one thing that I'm so grateful for, which at the time I was like, really? Is I know how to read a map. Now, where I live in the UK, it's quite funny, because you have generations that will tell you, well, you go down 3 miles and then you'll see a tree. And you're thinking, yeah, I see trees everywhere. What stands out with this tree? Oh, well, this tree is different because it's by this pub. And they can tell you exactly where the things are. Why? Because they're engaging their brain, they're moving, and blood circulation is so profound to keeping nutrients going to the brain. So regardless if you're young or you're old, get up and do some walking. Have a dance, have a laugh. Have fun.
I love it.
That's what I think kids show us that.
I love it, Shoela. I love it. Hey, look, there's one more thing with mental health, and I saw more of this picture behind your head when we signed on. The last line is to your mind, and I ask you about the first line. Could you give that to us and kind of tell us what you mean, why you have this prominently on your office wall?
Okay, so it's be kind to your mind is the whole phrase, and it's the picture of a Black woman with her afro is flowers, and the reason is it's behind me is just to, and I have actually a mirror in front of me, is also to remind myself, and also when I'm talking to people, is that what you put in your mind is a seed. So if you're thinking always about the negative things and how not positive things are going on in your life, you're just planting those roots. And what you need to sometimes do is just be kind to yourself. Okay, I'm having a rough day. And it may not be a rough day. It might be, okay, yeah, I lost the keys, the dog's thrown up on the carpet, the kids are going to be late, the car's got a flat tire. It will pass. And just be kind to yourself. Just be kind. Kindness goes so far. Kindness
Yeah,
goes so far.
that's right. If you think about kindness to others, but what you're saying is also kindness to yourself could go a long way.
So that also ties into what I was saying about what you eat and how you think. Is it's not, we're so quick to say, well, I shouldn't eat that and I shouldn't do that. And the only word I would say is you get rid of the should. You can do the best you can do
Yeah,
with what you know at the time. So you've done the best. That's what you
that's
do.
right. That's hard, but it's so true. Try not to shit all over yourself.
So
Sheila,
true.
it has been truly a pleasure talk with you today. Really, really a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been an absolute privilege, Stephen.
You've been listening to the Possibility Action Network podcast. Our guest today has been Shoela Currey, a natural medicine practitioner. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton. Until next time, good day. You are not alone, just keep on.